John, the title of your book is Dead Move. Could you explain to us where that originates?
Well, the full title is Dead Move, Kate Morgan and the Haunting Mystery of Coronado. Dead Move sort of fell into my lap quite accidentally. I was working at the hotel part-time as a shuttle driver a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine was promoted to manager. So one day I said to him, have you seen any ghostly things going on? And he said, oh yeah. And he described to me that right after he started as manager, that some lady had checked into room 3327, Lottie Bernard's room, to be safe about the name. And he told me that that night at 3 in the morning, she called the desk and said, get me out of here, because, the lights were flickering, the fan was moving and whatnot. And he said, so we did a dead move. And I said, excuse me? He said, oh yeah, that's hotel parlance, when you check someone out of one room and into another one without re-registering. It's a dead move. I said, thank you. You just gave me the title for my book. I was interested in the crime story more than anything else. Why did this mysterious woman check in? Why did she die a few days later? Who was she? No one ever really figured it out. I mean, if this isn't the final proof, it's the next best thing to it. So I summoned all my courage and put out this third version, which is the nonfiction scholarly analysis with over 120 footnotes, and that's the book that I published in 2008.
You mentioned in passing the room 3327.
Yes. It's changed a couple of times.
Okay.
Well, let me point out briefly first that the death certificate, the official death certificate, says Lottie A. Bernard, and then underneath it says AKA Kate Morgan, and that was sort of an afterthought. Now, Lizzie Wiley, when the woman was found dead on the back steps on the morning of November 29th, 1892, they of course thought it was Lottie Bernard, which is the name she signed in by. So they began to search for Mr. Bernard, because there had to be a Mr. Bernard. And there was also supposedly a Dr. Anderson and his wife Louisa, who she kept asking about constantly. And it turned out pretty soon, after a week or two, it was pretty well determined that those were fictions. And not only that, but Lottie Bernard was a fiction. So the next ID on the body was thought to be Lizzie Wiley, this beautiful young, very elegantly dressed and stylish runaway from Detroit, a woman of about 24 years old who'd gotten into an affair with her foreman at the bookbinding factory, John Longfield. And they then ran off. He was a married man with several children. And they ran off, and I believe they ended up in San Diego, where in fact Lizzie had relatives, but she didn't see them. They never got to see her while she was here. After this, the name Kate Morgan popped up because someone contacted the local police chief and said that he thought it was Kate Morgan, who was a woman from Iowa who was married to Tom Morgan of Nebraska, and they were both from wealthy families, and they were sort of black sheep, and they supposedly fleeced people on transcontinental trains, where she would seduce a guy and bring him back to a carriage where Tom sat with a liquor bottle and a deck of cards, and she wanted the guy to meet her brother, who had to sort of approve of him, but she thought he was a really nice fellow. So she'd sit next to him, rubbing hips with him, while Tom was getting him drunk, and they might slip him something in his drink, and then, they'd rob him when he passed out, and then they'd get off the next station. That's part of the legend. The strongest lead that happened was a contractor named Grant in Los Angeles said they were missing their favorite maid, Katie Logan, thank you. And Katie was supposed to come back on Thanksgiving Day, which is the day the unknown person checked in at the Hotel Del, as Lottie Bernard. And they said she matched the description very closely. And it was finally determined, because of a little discrepancy in earrings and moles on the left cheek, that it was probably not Lizzie, but this other woman, Kate Morgan. you know. But they finally decided, yeah, let's just call her Lottie Bernard, and oh yeah, by the way, AKA Kate Morgan. Then we're done. Which is why I say I go with the 2 moles on the left cheek. Lizzie had them, Kate didn't. The dead woman had 2 moles on her left cheek. And that for me was enough to settle that question to a reasonable extent. There were a number of artifacts found in the dead woman, and I refer to her as Lottie Bernard, to be neutral.
Right.
I think it was Lizzie Wiley. There are those who will think Lottie Bernard was Kate Morgan. I don't believe that. In fact, one of the most compelling moments in the entire saga is when Katie Logan, in a momentary slip, she told another woman there that her real name was Lizzie, and then she must have caught herself. But you know, I go by Kitty. I mean Katie, and that's how the newspapers at that time reported the interview with that other maid. When people saw the pictures of Kate Morgan, they said, people in the hotels where she had been, Lizzie, said, this is not the woman that checked in. This is sort of a homely potato.
Right.
Well, the homely potato is a very persuasive seductress. She was a plain woman compared to Lizzie, but I think she was one of those people with very, very hypnotic eyes, because she could blackmail, she was a con artist, she was a grifter. So those are, you know, she told the girl